Hey, I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'm not sure how you found us, but I want to let you know that we have made it as easy as possible for you to find, follow, and share this podcast with as many people as possible. All you have to do is type in Community Solutions, and we're in the Apple iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, we're on Spotify, and as usual, you can find it out on YouTube or by going directly to podbabble.com, a great podcast network that we're part of. So go out there and go nuts, because the more that you share this information, the greater opportunity that you have to change your community. So thank you again for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Bang your head. Mental health will drive you mad. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, episode 65. Today we are jacked up and we're going to let you have it, aren't we, Andrew?
We are on extra Red Bull today. We are jacked up big time.
Yeah.
I mean, big time.
And why shouldn't it be? You know, we just got out of the studio. Of course, you'll have heard it before, but we were talking to Jack Stand-In, Cat Lady, and Ben about
Up and
Adam about our plans for the Met Council, and
they even questioned me about my future run for governor.
Yeah,
I mean, it was great. I wasn't expecting that. I answered it pretty well, getting fired at, of course.
Yeah,
endorsement talk, which is always the talk this time of year.
Absolutely.
So yeah, now Jay, off the air, you said I know that song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that song. So
okay. That is Mental Health by Quiet Riot.
Okay, I would have never guessed that.
That's like from back in like 1981 or something.
The year of the baseball strike.
Something like that. It's an old one. That's why I thought that maybe you'd get it, but we're taking that because today we will be talking about the bonding bill that passed, and mental health is one of the big chunks of that bonding bill, at least from the House of Representatives side of it, and there's a lot of junk in there. We're going to talk about $825 million, and it's
money we don't have, but
crazy.
We're going to spend anyway.
Absolutely. But before we do that, we want to talk a little bit about the city of Edina, because they're doing wonderful things down there.
Speak for yourself. I don't know that I'll agree with that.
Recording in the city of St. Louis Park here, as we are, it's our neighbors to the south, and wow, it's wonderful there. It's next to St. Louis Park, it probably is wonderful, but it's still pretty bad.
Boy, and you got what, Minneapolis to the east of it?
Yeah.
That's a pretty bad trifecta there. You got Golden Valley to the north, Hopkins to the west.
Yeah.
Or that would be west of St. Louis Park, I guess.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a rough quadrant.
Minnetonka, and it's all Eden Prairie.
We talked about Minnetonka with the Ridgedale thing podcast or two ago.
Yeah, that was I believe last week, or no, it was a couple weeks ago. We talked about that. Yeah. So, wow, good stuff happening. I tell you what.
Well, you'll be glad to know, you Edina residents out there listening, and I know you're all listening. Judging by our numbers, you're all listening every week. Edina took a big step Tuesday. I'm reading from the Star and Tribune. Edina took a big step Tuesday night. Now this would be Tuesday, May 15th, to create a sense of belonging for people of color in that suburb. Until, of course, the Met Council comes along and takes that suburb. They'll just be urban, no suburban anymore. The City Council approved a task force report outlining the steps it recommended to correct long-term racial inequities. Now, Jay, this seems to be a lot in response to some, I never saw it, but some police, incident a few years back that some task force was created to, ostensibly
Right.
better the relations, or I don't know how you put it, but I guess that went turbo viral.
Yeah, there was a police officer that handcuffed a minority pedestrian. And because of the way that was handled, and I'm not saying it was handled correctly, but I'm saying because of the way that was handled, that's why this was created.
Huh. Interesting. Now, the final report, which you can read, Jay, I'm not going to read it. I just love this line here from the Star Tribune. It includes 21 recommendations to address racial discrimination in all facets of the city, from its police department to its parks and facilities. So the parks and facilities are racist in Edina too?
Well,
are there too many hockey rinks or something? I mean, what's the problem? How can a facility be racist?
that's a good question.
I mean, I can understand if there's, white bathrooms and, your white drinking fountains. Okay, that's something. Are
Right.
minorities not welcome in the park? I mean, what? I don't want to read and find out. I'm just kind of. It's like when we talked about St. Louis Park, talking about how, they talked about government facilities or government services being applied equally. I'm like, well, how do we respond to 911 calls? Do we take the white ones first? I mean, what's?
No.
I don't get what the issue is there.
It's another one of those things where it's kind of the trendy thing to do.
You mentioned off camera. We mentioned Hopkins has one, and we didn't even know that.
Right.
A racial equity plan, or whatever you want to call it. And,
That's exactly what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something, and I guess if we did the research, and maybe we should have before we turned the mics on.
No, this is our local lowdown here.
Right, this is the local lowdown. We should mention that.
Yeah, we touched on this. This isn't the main part, and maybe we will have to do that.
How many cities have this kind of thing, and what are the makeup of those cities? I mean, you could make a case, if there was... a city like Minneapolis that has a very large minority...
Brooklyn Park.
Brooklyn Park, a very large minority subset. Or if you had a suburb where there actually are problems with...
Which I'm sure there are.
And there probably
I don't want to belittle this.
No.
But, yeah.
No, I mean, I know how you and I think, and it's... With minorities, I mean, they're red-blooded people just like you and I. They need to be able to be afforded the freedoms to live a free life, to be able to pursue employment, self-employment, if that's what they desire, the ability to have the opportunity to pursue getting a house, getting a car, all of those things, getting an education.
But Jay, that's where the difference is. It's equal opportunity versus equal outcome.
Right.
Yeah, how have we talked about there's racial inequities? Well, you fix the opportunity, okay, you're still going to have inequities because people have a different spot they want to get to in life.
Right.
So the idea that we're going to somehow make everybody, I call it making everybody equally miserable, because that's ultimately what I think redistributing wealth does. But it's the old opportunity versus outcome, and I don't understand how we're ever going to get to a point where we're going to have equal outcome among all races, among all people, among all genders, ever.
Right. Oh wow, that sounds different all of a sudden. We must have had gremlins in the system, or maybe Renee Bowman was bugging us.
Well, hello to the former mayor if she's in here listening.
Absolutely.
We know she listens. So,
yeah. Maybe she's in with Comey and the crew and
could be
bugging our podcast.
Hey, look, we've had interesting things from our government we've talked about. I don't put anything past them, so anything's possible.
That's true. You can go back and listen to our podcast on conspiracies and...
That was great. You gotta admit
fun.
that was. I wanted to do that for a long time.
That was
almost as bad as a podcast on wrestling. That's about as bad.
That would be all right.
I wanted to do that bad.
We may have to do that at some point.
Now, Jay, we touched on Edina. Let me just continue here after our technical difficulties. Here's one part of this equity task force. Only 2% of Edina's residents are black. And there are no members of racial minorities. There's no blacks on the city council. Well, there's a 5-person city council, Jay. So what's 2% of 5 people?
Well, 20%.
1/10 of one person?
20% of 5 is 1. Okay. So
we need a council member whose great-great-great-great-grandfather was black?
Well, I guess that would count. I don't know.
And here's another part.
Yeah.
There's few to no people of color on city boards or task forces. Well, how can there be few to no? There's either few or there aren't any.
Right.
So I don't know how they can be both. Now, Jay, we've talked about minorities running for office and things before, about cities where there's 20%, 15%, 10%, and there's no... You know what? Here's the way to fix that. You need to get more minorities to apply and more minorities to run. I'd like to know from Edina, how many minorities have applied to be on commissions? How many minorities have run for city? Of course, running for city council, a big part of that would be serving on a, like you and I harp on all the time.
Right.
So what are the statistics of that?
That would be a great question, and if they did run and didn't win, did they run a good campaign? And if not, why? If so, then why did the other person win? If they did not apply to be on a commission, they shouldn't be surprised they're not on one. If they did apply, then... was it the fault of a staff member that they didn't get an interview? If they did get an interview, did they interview poorly? If they interviewed well, then it's the city council's fault that they're not sitting on an advisory commission.
Right. And shouldn't the council take some responsibility for going out and recruiting people? If you want people of and I hesitate to say this because I'm really not sure it's the council's job. It's a two-way street. Getting people to serve. There's people have to be willing to put in the time, be willing to do the job, step up to do the job, and then there's another end of it with being informed and all that kind of stuff. So how many openings are there on commissions right now? What if there's hardly any? Are you going to have affirmative action? Do you have to have X amount of... What if you have, 12 applicants for something and they're all white? What are you going to do? Turn down 12 volunteers and say, "Oh, sorry, but we've got..." I don't know what...
Well, and still, if you had 11 applicants or 12 applicants, 11 were white and 1 was a minority of whatever, stripe, that would you take the minority just because you need to fill a quota, even if they weren't the most qualified?
Well, that's the we've been doing this since the 60s. Are you going to, I hate to use the term lower the standards, but are you going to, what's more important? Good, knowledgeable people or X amount of people, X amount of women?
Right.
When I served on the Planning Commission in Crystal, I believe there was only one woman on the commission. She sat next to me.
Right.
I'm trying to think of her name. Michelle Strand. But, everybody else were men.
Yep, but then you look at the Crystal City Council, 4 women and 3 men, and they do great.
And you add a woman city manager, a woman police chief. There's other things where women are, very much so in Crystal. So, what do you do at that point? Is there a problem, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, yeah, number one, is there a problem? And I would say...
You don't want to create a problem.
No, which is what cities do all the time. Create their own problems so they can solve them. But that's true. Let me throw this out there again, kind of like last time we talked about this. If you are a minority, if you have a group of minorities and you want to get together, we would love to come teach you about city government, how it works, how it really works, not just how they tell you it works, how you can get involved, teach you about how to run a good campaign, teach you about how to get on an advisory commission. We would love to do that for you. And we don't just write some expensive government report and say, hey, we need to get more people involved. No, we can actually show you and tell you how to get involved in the process. So please get a hold of us at comsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we'll make sure to make it worth your while.
Great job of segueing us into the middle of this. Now, let me just say this. I mean, you look around other cities, like take a city, maybe a city like New Hope. New Hope's about 15 to 20% minority, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood.
Maybe about that.
They don't have any minorities in the city council.
No,
their
they
people
don't.
run unopposed.
That's true.
Robbinsdale is a city with probably a good 20% now.
Right.
I don't see any minorities on that city council, is there?
No.
I don't think so.
No, there's not.
We have, one on the school board? Helen Bassett? Is she still there?
Yep.
I'm not even sure if she's still there.
I'm pretty sure she's still there.
So, I mean, cities far more, quote-unquote, diverse haven't made much... I hate to use the term progress because I think elected offices are earned. I don't think they're given to people.
Right.
But this is the scariest line. Is this next line?
Yeah.
They mentioned that 13% of Hennepin County residents are black, which means nothing really. Hennepin County's got 1 million people in it.
Right.
They also asked. This task force that the city update its affordable housing policy to explicitly mention creating a diverse population. Translation: we are going to recruit black people to live here because there's just not enough black people here.
Well, and I think it's any minority.
Well, they mentioned black specifically. But,
yeah. Well, it's funny because you look through this report that they wrote up, and they make sure to call out. They talk about the mayor and what he does and how long he served. And the last sentence of it: in addition to serving as mayor, Hovland practices law at the Edina-based firm Hovland and Rasmus PLLC, where he is a partner. He is a resident of Edina and is white. They had to call that out. And then with the city manager, they do the same thing. The current city manager, Scott Neal, has held the position since 2010. He's not a resident of Edina, and he is white. What does that matter? I mean, I thought that they were on your team because they're creating this report. They're trying to fix this issue that they found and kind of throwing them under the bus at the same time.
Well, it's weird, and I think you're right. I mean, I'll just leave it with this. This is something that we are definitely going to have to dive into a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and they want to look at, like you said, facilities, institutions, parks, services, city government, and they want to make sure that they are racially inclusive and equitable. And if there are actual issues, like there's actual racism happening, and people are getting threatened if they're having to deal with having to live a life that is segregated, or they're being pushed down, or they're being limited, they're not being allowed to live free. That's a problem, and that needs to be dealt with immediately. If it's, hey, we don't feel good because we don't have enough people that don't look like us in our group, that's really not a problem, other than it's your group. Invite more people into your group.
I've said this before. This is a little provocative. Okay? So stick with me on this.
Okay.
If I said that, the labels that I would be called? Okay?
Right.
So to me, it's a two-way street here. The minorities have to step up and serve. They can't come to council meetings and then complain and then, go home and wait for somebody else to do something. I mean, this is the same call to action that you just talked about, is that, if you don't feel like your government, look, when Crystal, we had 7 white people on the council, and I didn't think they represented me.
No.
It had not a thing to do with race.
No.
And we replaced them with people that we still have the same racial makeup, but I feel like but it's because of my viewpoints.
Yes.
So ultimately, a person of one race can represent a person of another race. And I think this is looking at it as only a black person can represent black people.
Right.
Well, we know that's ludicrous. Come on. That's
Absolutely.
ridiculous. I mean, I would have no problem voting for a person of color. I voted for people of color. I voted for women who I have agreed with politically. Their race, gender, income had nothing to do with why I voted for them. Mm-hmm. And I think if these groups want to do themselves some favors, they need to focus on issues. And their issues, they may view issues a little differently than white people do. That's very possible. But they ought to focus on what can I do to make my city better? Mm-hmm. Not what can I do to put, I don't know what the term I want to use, X amount of people of something somewhere.
Right.
But let's get people to represent us regardless of their gender or color. That's when we'll have real equity.
Yes.
But this other stuff is feel good. What do you want to bet? Let me make a bet with you.
Yeah.
In 10 years, 5 white people are still on the Edina City Council.
Yeah. That's probably true.
So what are we going to do? Do another racial equity thing? Make sure the parks aren't racist? And I mean, but ultimately the follow-up has to be, how do we get minorities to serve? And if we don't do that, that's what leads to council. That's what leads to. So if we don't do that, and there's a onus on them too.
I would argue this. There are 2% blacks in Edina, and that means it's probably not 98% white. It's with other races and stuff.
Probably
it's probably 90. What's the percentage of white people in Edina that are involved in the process? Because we've found, statewide, that even 1% of people really are not involved in the government process. Yeah. So if you have 2% blacks and you have 1% of 2%, you shouldn't be surprised that you don't have anybody in your government of that race. Because as a human being, they probably have the same tendencies as somebody of any other color, and if we can take and look at a larger group like white people and say that, okay, less than 1% of white people are involved in their local government,
or show up to caucus
or whatever, why are we surprised that the same thing is happening in different races as well? It seems more like a human nature issue than it is a racial problem.
Right, there's just more whites.
Right.
Ultimately, I put it crudely, but 1% of 90% is more than 1% of 2.
Yeah. That's just the way it is, and right or wrong. But again, our offer stands. We would love to teach the minority classes.
Put it to you this way. If there were, I'll just throw out a number: 500 blacks in a city, and half of them showed up to caucus, the blacks would be running the caucus.
Right.
I don't mean that crudely. I'm just saying, if you really want to get down to it,
right,
the world's run by who shows up.
Yeah.
So, you're in a city where they vote in the odd years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one group could take that over if they worked hard enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As pathetic as the vote totals are in a city like Golden Valley that has odd year elections, if they were to organize and put forth an effort, they could easily win seats in a city like Golden Valley.
We see it all the time. We see it with unions doing it. We see it with school districts doing it. Why would it be any different with a citizen group like ours? Why would it be any different?
It wouldn't be.
Well,
It wouldn't be, but I mean, you go down the list in this report, and they talk about there being cultural insensitivity in the city, and that an overall sense that Edina community members are insensitive to non-white cultures, racial slurs throughout the community, people of all races are verbalizing racial slurs. Microaggressions, instances of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against community members of color are widespread across Edina, they're saying. Otherness. Many do not feel welcome or a sense of belonging based on the cultural norm that people who differ from the typical Edina profile do not belong to the community. What is the typical Edina profile?
I don't know, and I would add to it, if you are a renter, I can understand how you don't feel like you, like, for example, I've said this before, my wife and I are renting in Plymouth right now. I like the city. Do I feel like it's my home the way I felt when I lived in Crystal? My wife lived in Robbinsdale before we got married. No, I don't. I don't have a sense of belonging here because I don't know in a year if I'm going to be here or not.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with my color. So I think the sense of belonging, I'd like to pull homeowners and ask them that question. And I also think some people don't respond well to change.
Yeah. And
Edina is a city that's one of these yuppie, trendy cities that is forcing a lot of change. There's a lot of high-density housing that's gone up.
Yep.
There's roundabouts. It's changed a lot. I used to work in Edina maybe 15 or 18 years. I don't recognize the city anymore. From where I used to work. So you go down Southdale, it looks way different than it did.
Yeah.
And so maybe I think people, it was not the place I lived in 15 years ago. I don't know what they're referring to, but it could be something like that.
Right.
But I think it's to make blanket statements like all races are throwing out racial slurs at each other. Well, you know what? You don't have that documented or on tape. You got no business putting that in there. That's absurd.
Yeah, and I don't see any kind of footnotes here.
Of course you don't. It's there to justify the report.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, it's a big report. It's 189 pages. So
that's worse than their CAFR.
Yeah. So there's a lot to go through here. But, it's... I mean, as bad as what might be in there, it's just the fact that they think that they need to mess with the way that things are, thinking that there's a problem, and there may be small problems, and you address those things, like, if there are microaggression race wars going on, you need to stop that, but you do it with police, or. Granted, you can't go in guns a-blazing. You can't, be roughing people up. If that's an issue, then that's a training issue. And,
right, you deal with that on an individual basis.
Right. It's not like this one police officer handcuffed a guy, and he was pretty rough, so we need to change the way the whole city does things because the whole city's in chaos.
Well, and I think you just have to let things happen organically. I mean, there's going to be growing pains.
There will be.
There's change. Yeah. There's just going to be... It's going to take a while, and I don't know what you can do with the city parks that is going to make that happen any better.
Right.
I mean,
well, and they're doing their best though. Edina did join the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. That's GARE, GARE, which is a national network of governments working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. So.
Should add a Y, just call it Gary.
That'd be all right.
All right, that's enough. That's enough of this thing. Yeah. Jay, where are you getting this? If people want to look at it, can you give us
this is right on Edina's website.
Oh, okay.
If you go to edinamn.gov, into their document center, you can find the final report on their racial equity initiative. So it's good stuff. It's it's brand new. I mean, they finished this May 15th.
Oh,
so
it's hot off the presses.
Yeah. Better snap that up, and it'll hit New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah, and I tell you, knock Dr. Phil off. I tell you what, the next subject we have is no better.
Yeah, when is it ever?
Well, mean, I do relish having good news on once in a while, but Jay, there's so many problems, and that it feels like you and I are swinging at moving targets all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've got a stone and a rock, and I'm trying to deer hunt. I mean, that's what it feels like sometimes. A stone and a rock, stone and a what do you call it? Slingshot.
Okay.
That's what it feels like. I have trying to kill a deer with a slingshot. When I look at now, by the time this airs, I don't know what will happen. Okay,
right?
Because you have we're going to the state here, but it relates to local government, because to me, we go through this. We used to go through this every 2 years,
right?
And under Governor Dayton, we seem to go through this every year.
Yeah,
and this is a bonding bill.
Yep, and this is a bonding year, so that makes sense.
We didn't pass one in 2016.
So we did last year, and we have bonding 2 years in a row.
And we did the same thing in Dayton's first entire first term. We did bonding all 4 years. So the House Republicans put a bill together. I shouldn't laugh at it, but 800. This is considered Jay, I want you to know.
Yeah.
This is considered conservative.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so then we're reducing spending.
Yeah, and the size of government.
Oh, wait a second. It's a bonding bill, so they're automatically spending more.
And paying it back with interest.
With interest, yeah.
Okay. $825 million.
Oh, boy.
Now, it's technically called a public works bill. Now, the Minnesota Constitution requires 60%.
That's because the public's going to have to work a whole lot harder to pay this off.
Yeah, that too. $825 million, which, of course, billions of dollars are just thrown around like it falls out of somebody's pocket. And this is the stuff. Now, look. I'm not saying a bond is an evil four-letter word. I want to make sure people get that.
Right.
But, Jake, can you explain to me, back in 2011, we shut the government down over a $34 billion biennium.
Yep.
The spending is already up to $45 billion in this biennium. So we've had an $11 billion increase over the last 8 years. Can you explain to me why we need a bonding bill at all on top of that?
We still have a surplus, right?
Right, meaning we overpaid our tax bill.
Yeah.
On paper, we have a surplus.
Yes.
Now, the Constitution requires X amount to go in reserves. I don't remember a quarter of it. There's some provision to that. But, yes, we... On paper, I don't like to call it a surplus. I like to say that we overpaid our taxes because that's kind of more accurate. What that means
that's exactly it.
Yeah, everybody gets all the increases they were promised. Everybody gets their child care, their hemorrhoid cream, everything all paid for, and we still have money left over. So I went to the grocery store, I bought everything there, and I still have money to go. So what is the reason that we have an $825 million bonding bill even proposed? Now, I'm asking that rhetorically. I don't expect you to have an answer.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, with all of that, and having a surplus on paper, but, so they overcharged us for taxes, plus all of this, plus the bonding bill last year, and all of this stuff,
and the interest on it.
Yeah, and we need to bond again.
Now, let me ask even another rhetorical question here. If we were to bond, what should be included in a bonding bill?
Paying down other bonds? No, I'm just kidding.
Well. You don't want to pay off those bonds too quick.
Right. Well, I mean, your big projects always go in the bonds because they're things that can be paid off over time. So a lot of your roads, bridges.
Okay, but don't we have tax dollars going to that already?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. That stuff is supposed to be paid for, quite a bit by the gas tax and
the vehicle sales tax,
the
license
wheelage tax, all of that.
We did that episode where we explained those. I don't know what number it was. Doesn't matter.
Right.
But we broke down the three different big, along with the wheeler, which is a county tax.
Yes.
Where your gas tax, and still, it isn't enough to do all the projects they want to do. We don't have enough road construction out there. You driven 169 through Champlin recently?
Oh boy, it's no good.
I just did that today.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and there is some highway, or there are some highway projects that are in some of this bonding as well, and so obviously they're not getting enough money through that. Other things that should be in a bonding bill like that, I guess oftentimes, like, if, as much as I hate it, you're going to do something like renovate the Capitol building or things like that. That often comes through a bond.
MnSCU is a big one oftentimes, too.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a system of universities through the University of Minnesota system. But can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're paying for this anyway, and we're already subsidizing higher education largely anyhow. But if a school district wants, when District 281 redid Northport, they didn't get a bond from the state to do it.
No.
They issued their own bonds.
Yes, they did.
I mean, it's kind of like, and does every government building need to cost $20 million? I mean, what is with,
apparently they do. I mean, the new visitor center at historic Fort Snelling, it's going to be $30 million included in the bonding bill for that.
Now, I guess the reason I asked that question rhetorically is these things. My big thing is, number one, they got to have a statewide value.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, state highway is a state responsibility.
Absolutely.
However you pay for it, I don't want to debate the gas tax and that stuff now.
Yeah.
However you pay for it, that is a state function. Okay. But when I look at some of this, like, here's another thing in this.
Yeah.
A second Harvest Food Bank facility in Brooklyn Park. That is in the Republican bonding bill.
Yeah.
$15 million for the Upper Harbor Terminal redevelopment in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
What's the statewide value in that? Minneapolis is getting, what, $80 million in local government aid?
Yeah.
What can they bond for their own building?
Exactly.
I mean,
but they don't.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Fort Snelling. I mean, it breaks down basically. Remember, this is the Republican bill.
Right.
$364 million for state-owned buildings, $120 million for roads and transportation, whatever that means, and $153 million for water and conservation projects.
Huh. That's wow.
Whatever those are. We mentioned education. Here's one. The campus makeover at Rochester Community and Technical College. You know what the price tag is for that?
It's
Don't
in here
peek.
somewhere. Okay. I thought that I saw it. I don't remember what it is. $23 million.
$22.85 million. Now that's for
What a guess. Look at that.
campus makeover at one community and technical college. One.
Wow.
Now, again, I mean, that's just crazy.
Right.
Governor Dayton, though not to be outdone, was outraged at this, calling it, quote, woefully inadequate. Where is the other half, said Dayton, who added that the state has $2.3 billion worth of, quote, real needs. Now, remember, needs is the key. Dayton's recommendation, which he has to do constitutionally, by the way.
Yeah.
By January, the governor has to present a budget in the off year. They always present bonding in the even year, like you mentioned.
Right.
Tilts highly toward higher education, water infrastructure, and then here we go, affordable housing. He wants $122 million to affordable housing. Now, how can anybody make the case that's a statewide thing?
No,
what are you going to do?
is
Subsidize
housing
it?
should be local. Of course, through the Met Council, you're gonna figure out where all that affordable housing goes. And
True, but
yeah.
What is the government spending $122 million to do?
Great question, because a lot of, you look at local development, and a lot of that is financed through tax increment financing, tax abatements, loans, all that kind of stuff.
So is this to subsidize that? I mean, who's getting this money?
It could go to EDA. It could go into studies. A lot of it could go into studies. Oh, we need it here.
TOD.
We need it here. We have to do environmental studies. Yeah.
TOD, maybe.
Right.
$90 million in, quote, rail safety. Boy, I'll tell you what, you got money to burn here. I mean, that's of course, the other people that are disappointed, too. Mm-hmm. In a statement, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce, boy, that's got to be a lonely group there. The St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce and the East Metro Strong Group said I guess they all said the same thing. Yeah. They are disappointed the bill doesn't include money for bus rapid transit. Why aren't we paying for that anyway? I mean, buses get $0?
Yeah.
And again, if you want to have trails or things, going to the state, if these groups spend all the money, all the local money, they spend lobbying, they actually did these projects with, maybe some of them would be done by now.
Well, there is that. Oh, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, looking at $91.9 million for local roads,
Right, again, and what is that? Local roads?
Local roads. I mean, the Transportation Alliance of Minnesota says it's good because roads are a big priority for local municipalities.
Right, but again, who should be paying for that? We're back into 8 arms of government having a say or some sort of authority over some local project.
Right. And like this local project, I mean, the lack of indoor plumbing at the Northwest Angle Inlet School in the War Road District is saying that a teacher is bringing a chamber pot into the classroom. I mean, what do they put, a shower curtain up around it? How does that work? I mean, really? I mean, I'm not often in favor of school referendums because the money gets blown. But if you had a referendum specifically to get indoor plumbing and some bathrooms in a school, I think I might even be okay with paying for that.
Well, remember, that's separate. That's not operational, so it's a different thing.
Right.
Here's
still,
my favorite. Here's my favorite. Now, my wife and I just went to the Glen Sheen Mansion.
Oh, it's lovely.
Very nice.
Yes.
They're going to get $4 million.
Oh.
$4 million. Now, does anybody at the Glen Sheen Mansion look poor to you?
No.
I know it's a historic site now, but
right.
$4 million. I was just there in February. I don't know where the heck they're going to spend $4 million on.
To pay minimum wage to the people that give their tours?
I don't know, but the people who give their tours usually are students over at.
Right.
That's who gave it ours. She did very well, but I mean, she went to UMD.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So
$4 million? It's insane. I mean,
yeah, I fix up the carriage house. I don't know. Decorate for Christmas time.
Yeah, you mentioned the there was a $988 million bonding bill last year, 2017.
Right.
Largely because there wasn't one. There's a whole spreadsheet here at house.leg.state.mn.us. Jay, I'm going to text it to you right now.
Okay.
Because I just found this, where you can see all of the things. Now, remember, this is the Republican, the conservative proposal. The Republicans held a press conference, which was very strange, that bemoaned all the spending that the Democrats voted down. I was kind of, I looked at it kind of going, what? I mean, and you could see there's the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota State. There's money going to the Department of Natural Resources. There's money going to military affairs. Obviously, the Department of Transportation, local roads. I mean, the local road program undesignated. City of Dayton alone to get $13 million for a Brook-Brockton interchange. City of Inver Grove Heights in a Trail 70th Street expansion, $6 million.
Wow.
You believe that?
Yeah, I can.
I mean, these numbers are in millions, or in thousands, I should say.
Yeah.
Metropolitan Council, $10 million for Regional Parks and Trails Grant Program. Oh, I thought the Republicans didn't like the Met Council. Oh, I guess they do. Regional Mental Health Crisis Center grants, $25 million.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I could say I was speechless, but
it'd be a short podcast.
Yeah. We can't have that.
No.
Cottage Grove Hero Center, $9.9 million.
Well, you saw that our friends in the city of New Hope were getting money for their 50-meter pool.
I did not see that.
Oh, yeah.
Where the hell is that? I don't see
it's
that.
under the Metropolitan Council. It is on line 125.
Wow, $2 million?
Yeah.
Should see if old Lyndon Carlson was the sponsor of that. City of St. Paul Wacken Tippy Center. What the hell is that?
I don't know.
But the Met Council, $20 million they're getting.
Yeah.
Human Services, $54 million. Anoka roof and HVAC replacement. Well, is that Anoka County? I mean, is that not a county building?
I would guess, yeah.
So this is the thing. These groups, they come and they want money for their little project or whatever. And like I said, what is a city? What on here? I mean, I could probably pick 1 out of 5 of these things that maybe have any kind of statewide implications at all.
Right.
I mean, the state roads, even though if we'd stop spending money on all the other stuff.
I mean, there's some stuff. I mean, you look at the Moose Lake control room renovation. That's for the prison of Moose Lake. People from all over the state go there. Yeah, Department of Corrections, Veteran Affairs Department. I mean, those things.
Again, I come back to, do we need to bond for them? I mean, Department of Corrections. Is that something we should have to bond to have?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, creating a new prison or, versus putting in some new control boards, I don't know.
I mean, here's one, too. Employment and economic development. I'm sitting here looking at all this stuff wondering what in the world could be classified as a statewide thing. City of Litchfield Opera House.
Wow.
Pipestone County Dental Center. City of St. Paul. St. Paul, by the way, is complaining about this because they didn't get all that money for the River Center parking ramp they wanted. But they're getting money for their Conway Center, Humanities Center, Minnesota Museum of Art. I mean, what in the world? Look, City of Silver Bay, Black Beach Campground. It's getting almost $2 million.
Wow.
A campground.
I mean, it's one thing with a state park. It's a different thing with
park's
a campground.
different because but that's again under the Department of Natural Resources.
Right. we've got a little bit of time left today.
Yeah,
the Senate bill is not the same as the House bill, correct?
Right. No, I don't think so, unless they took up the House bill. I can't remember if they did or not. I know that I think they took up the House bill and it got voted down.
Yeah.
And I think the Senate has created their own version.
Right.
Because they don't have the votes.
Right.
The Senate.
Yeah, but it's the same amount. I mean, the Senate bill seems to be $825 million as well. It looks like they're...
Well, and then the governor has his own laundry list.
Well,
I mean, which is almost double the money.
Yeah. They're giving $30 million to mental health, $50 million earmarked for supportive housing for people with behavioral health needs in the Senate bill. They're looking at $342 million going to transportation. They're with 25 different transportation projects. I mean, some of these are highways, Highway 14 in Dodge and Steele counties, and
that's bad. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah. But there's 25 different projects of that, for transportation. Again, ton of higher education projects, almost $215 million. Water infrastructure at $120 million. 3 veterans homes in Bemidji, Montevideo, and Preston. Projects at 4 National Guard armories. I mean, those are a little more statewide projects there. So that's, better.
better with
better.
Kind of like saying Dumb and Dumber. It's
yeah. But and that's the thing. And I understand a lot of transportation money has been going to transit and things like that. But here they say, well, we've been working for the last 10 years at getting more money into the system for transportation. Bonding isn't our first choice, but it seems to be where we're having the most success. Well, Democrats aren't going to object to a lot of bonding. I mean, it's like, hey, we're getting to spend money. This is great.
But here's the issue I have. If the Republican bill starts at $825 million and the governor's bill is at $1.5 billion,
yeah,
okay, that tells me if there's a bonding bill, and there doesn't have to be,
right,
we're going to end up somewhere between there.
Yeah, and last year's bonding bill was $988 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of those 2 years together, I mean, you're looking at $2 billion in bonding.
But that's insane. That's just insane.
Right.
But I think the Republicans are really missing an opportunity to say, look, we are going to bond statewide things, whether that's MnSCU, whether that's veterans, whether that's state roads, things like that. But we are not going to include little pet projects because some city wants to preserve their pool.
Right.
And they're missing this chance. They're also missing, I think, a bigger picture opportunity of, like we talked about in our referendum show about how there's a proposed amendment to designate road spending. And I think that is just way, as much as I sympathize with spending too much on transit and not enough on roads like we should be.
Yeah.
I am against dedicated funds like that because I don't want to become California.
Right.
Where 80% of the money is spent and you can't control any of it.
Mm-hmm.
What if we get to a point where we want to spend on something else or we want to cut spending? Well, we can't because it's a dedicated fund.
Right.
And I think that's the avenue they're pursuing instead of getting rid of the borrowing.
Right.
So
I don't know. And to their credit, they shot some stuff down. They didn't approve everything, but still, I mean, okay, we're doing the pool in New Hope. We're doing, this thing over here. They shot down the parking ramp in St. Paul over at River Center.
Yeah, $50 million or something.
Yeah,
but of course, St. Paul's all ticked off, even though they're getting money for. And St. Paul gets what, $60 million in local government aid every year.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they pay for their own parking ramp?
Exactly.
They're already getting state money.
Yeah, well, even Dayton didn't call for funding the ramp in his proposal, which
what?
is
Oh my God!
Yeah.
So that's not part of that 1.5 billion.
No.
Oh my Lord!
No, just imagine if that had been in there too.
Well, then he would have had to give it to somebody else too.
Right.
I mean, there would have. But where is the philosophical debate? I guess is what I'm trying to get at over, over what should be a local. I mean, the local road part of it
Right.
is something I really just makes me cringe.
Mm-hmm.
Because now this is what city has an incentive to deal with their own local roads, pay for their own local roads. Why should they do it when
Right.
this city? How do you? My other problem with this is how do you decide who gets the money? How do you decide that Rochester's technical college gets money, but Hennepin County's doesn't?
Right.
What's your criteria? Why does the Glen Sheen Mansion get something, but another historic site, Paul Bunyan Land, doesn't?
I don't think that's a historical
I'm
site.
trying to. What would be? What's the thing up in Grand Rapids where Judy Garland was born in? I mean, that's Elm driving by.
Right,
that,
there's that.
That's
there's-
designated a historic site.
Right, yeah, but Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
Hello, we welcome Andrew to the park today. Yeah, no. How did they get my name?
Yeah, well, whatever, Laura Ingalls'
Yeah.
house or something. I mean, there's a lot of sites that are preserved. How do you decide who gets free money and who don't?
Yeah,
And I don't think that there's no criteria laid out. It's just who lobbies the most, who annoys people at the legislature the most,
There's
who's
a lot of that.
powerful, who is on a certain committee, gets their stuff
right.
in. So it's just
Trading favors. There's
Right.
a lot of that. Maybe not so much when the Republicans are in power, but definitely when the Democrats are in power. You look at your special interests and who can bring in the grant money and all
Right,
of that kind of stuff.
And here's the other thing,
Yeah.
because a supermajority is needed, it's really does have to be I'm trying to think of what the level is and to get 60% in each chamber. I think it's maybe 40 votes in the Senate. And what would it be in the House? 75, 77, something like that. I mean, you really do need members of both parties.
There were 72 Republicans, and then 12 DFLers voted with those 72 Republicans to pass the House bill.
So 84 out of, let's see, hold on, my Minnesota math.
Oh, yeah, there were 4 Republicans that joined the 35 Democrats in voting no. So
Okay, we've got 134 reps, so
yeah,
63% voted for it.
there you go. It just passed the threshold.
Yeah, so how many would they need? They would need 81 votes
Wow.
to pass it, and it would be 41 votes in the Senate. Yeah, so 40 would be one short. I was wrong. So
Okay.
41 and 81. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
So very rarely does either party, and during Governor Dayton, it's been swinging back and forth constantly. So
Right.
if you're going to have a bonding bill, you need some members of both parties to get it going. But here's one thing I would say about Republicans. He doesn't sign that tax bill, we ain't passing a bonding bill.
Yeah.
I would never vote for a bonding bill unless that tax bill that he vetoes passes.
That would be a great idea.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll live with the bonding, but what I can't live with is our taxes staying where they are, not complying with the federal code. In essence, a tax increase.
Right.
That's what we can't have. So I'll make that trade if I'm the Republicans right now.
Oh boy, I don't know. I guess Sophie's choice.
Yeah, it's like a 56% victory. It's not very good, but it's
No.
I'd be happy with no bonding bill, but it wouldn't kill me to get one, especially at lower than we did last time.
Yeah.
With if the tax bill can go through. So, but not great choices.
No, not really.
But we all know they don't have the votes to override.
No.
And I would have leveraged some other issues too, but that's just me.
Right.
Or he wants his education spending. You get the Democrats to cut stuff out of the bonding bill. I don't know what's been going on for the last 4 months. I don't know, why did they propose the bonding 3 months ago? We'd have had this resolved by now.
Right.
Well, It's a mess. But I just keep saying, the reason we bring this up on a local show is to illustrate what the state is spending money on, what they shouldn't be, and what local governments should be responsible for. Local roads in particular, but all these other little projects. New Hope, you want a pool? Pay for it yourself.
You're already taxing people $25 million in bonding for that new city center. Why not throw in a pool?
Really? The interest alone is more than the pool cost.
I mean, you're already doing everything else. Might as well put the pool in there. I mean, if you're going to go that far, go to $25 million. You might as well just finish the job.
What did they spend on lobbying? I'd like to know that too.
Yeah.
They probably lobbied through the league or through somebody else, whatever. And to complain that transit isn't in there, bonding for transit. We already are subsidizing 75% people riding.
Right. Well, I imagine that for these new bus rapid transit lines where they want to buy the electric buses, that some of the bonding that they would like to go towards that.
Fine. Ramsey County can do it.
Yeah.
Hennepin County, they got bonding authority. If you've got electric bus line going from Minneapolis to, I'll just make it up, Maple Grove, I'm just saying, that's entirely within one county. Again, it doesn't serve a statewide purpose.
No, and, the lines right now, you're looking at Minneapolis to Brooklyn Center. You're looking at, they're not talking about making the gateway electric at this point.
No, but that's coming. As soon as the bus rapid transit gets there, they'll want to keep.
Right.
That won't be good enough, and then they'll want to do something else.
Yeah, they'll say, people are still driving. There's still too many emissions. We need to get the electric buses because nobody wants to take the bus.
Yeah. We're not carbon neutral enough.
Right. Oh, criminy. So as you see, Minnesota, there are a lot of problems. We're still spending money hand over fist. It doesn't matter what party's in. It's still money.
Hold on. We should lobby to get Community Solutions because we serve a statewide value.
We do.
We certainly do more than the New Hope pool. We ought to get. Why can't we? I want equity here.
Yeah,
we just talked about
there we go.
Equity at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's get equity here between. And that's another thing you're going to see in these bills is every little thing that a city gets in the metro, some other city in the outstate, and they'll call it well balanced.
Right.
We'll look for that terminology too.
Right.
Not to mention names Diener at all. But you'll see that kind of thing too. So, but I think we should apply for bonding for the state.
Well, there we go.
Why not?
Why not?
They're handing out $825 million. Why can't we get one or two of it?
Yeah. That wouldn't
borrow
be
it
bad.
anyway. It's kind of like if you're going to go on vacation and put it on the credit card, why try to save $5 here and there?
Right. Right, with the service that we provide to the state. That's
they get their money back tenfold.
There we go. Over the long term, they'll be able to cut
the best investment
taxes,
they ever made.
and exactly. You guys will be making money by giving us money within you being the residents of this fine state.
All right, I interrupted you from starting to close the show.
Yeah, that's all right. It's okay. So, as you see, we have our share of problems. We're spending way too much money, and it really doesn't matter who has power in the state. And a lot of that is because we don't have a farm team at the local level sending the best and brightest to St. Paul. We have just whoever we get. There are some really good people in St. Paul. There are some really bad people in St. Paul. And we really need to build up our local farm team, our base of people that are in advisory commissions, in city councils, and school boards, in county commissions, and we need to be getting ourselves acclimated not to just how government works, but actually doing governing at the local level. And so by doing that allows us to change some of this in the long run. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but we are about patience. It took us 3 terms to turn everything over in Crystal. It will take time to get everything turned over statewide, but we can do it. We can put together a 20,000 person farm team across the state, and we know that it's possible because we've seen the numbers. We know that there are at least 1 million conservatives in this state that vote conservatively every election cycle. So that means there are enough of you to get 20,000, which is 2%, into seats in these local places. So that said, what are you waiting for? Email us.
Christmas.
Well, COMM, well, it'll be too late. The elections are in November. COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. And we've gotten a couple of emails just in the last week of people wanting to get more involved. And we'll answer you and we'll tell you what we think your best bet is to do in your community. We've been speaking across the state. It's been fun. It's been good. We can come speak where you're at. We're all over social media. Just COMM Solutions MN. Just get a hold of us. Google us. Find us on social media. Tell us what's happening in your area. Spread our podcast far and wide, because chances are people that don't know this stuff because it's not publicized. We find an article here or there, but we know the trends. We watch the publications and the social media accounts of these places that are putting these bad policies into place. So we can tell you firsthand what is going on, and you can be watching for it in your community, which is so important. So I cannot stress enough to get involved. So please consider it, because we've done our part and we've brought you this information. And now, Minnesota, we love you, but it's your turn to get to work.
If I get too caught